Good evening, Chanukah Sameach to everybody. As usually, we dedicate the Shiur to Atzlachat Am Yisrael, wherever he is and whoever needs. The Atzloche, Ptsuim, Chatufim, whatever, Chayalim. So, Bezrat Hashem, this limud will be dedicated to their success. We're dealing with Parashat Mikets, and I chose this time a secondary issue, the coronation of Yosef to be somehow the machlif of the king. Let's see it, and we have some interesting points about it. ויהי מקץ שנתיים ימים, ופרעה חולם, והנה עומד על היאור, etc. And then after שר המשקים tells פרעה in פסוק ט' וידבר שר המשקים את פרעה לאמור את חטאי אני מזכיר היום, etc. ונחלמה חלום בלילה אחד אני והוא, we've dreamt a dream, and then we have somebody to solve the dream. It was יוסף, וישלח פרעה ויקרא את יוסף, ויריצוהו מן הבור, ויגלח ויחלף simnotav vayavo el paro. So we are, and we know the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah Daf Yud Aleph. The Gemara says that the famous machloket between Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Eliezer, whether the world was created at the end of Elul till Rosh Hashanah, as we are used to celebrate Rosh Hashanah as the beginning of the world, or that it was done at the end of Adar, and Rosh Hashanah was in fact at Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But the Gemara brings that Hakol Modim sheberosh Hashanah Yosef yatsa mibeit ha'asurim. So he left the prison. Vayhi miketz shnatayim yamim u'farach olam. It was Rosh Hashanah. It was Aleph Tishrei. Gemara brings famous perek in Tehillim, which is a shir shel yom of Yom Chamishi, of Thursday, and then we talk about Edut bi Yosef, Samo betzato al Eretz Mitzrayim, and then we have at the same perek, well, the same chapter, we have Tik'u b'chodesh shofar b'kesel yom chagenu. So we have the inyan of Rosh Hashanah with Yosef. The Gemara concludes that Yosef was free on Rosh Hashanah. And it seems, if you read the Perek in a row, it seems as if from prison, from the pit, from the Mabor, Yosef is taken directly to Paro, and from then he becomes, at the same day, he becomes the king, or the Mishne Lamelech of Mitzrayim. Because if you read the whole thing, so Paro is very busy with his dream, and then when he וישלח פרעה ויקרא את יוסף, ויגלח ויחלף שמלותיו, it seems as if it's immediate. But if you look carefully, just let me tell you something about it. Yosef is not the only one who in history became a sort of a king in Egypt. We know from archaeology that there was some person called Ephrael. Maybe I don't pronounce it well. It's Afrael or something like this. And he was a minister in charge in Egypt. And if you hear the suffix el, it means that he was Jewish. He was Hebraic. He was Semite. He wasn't Egyptian, and he was a minister from in the years of Emanchotap III and Emanchotap IV, who was Akhenaton. His wife is very famous. Is Nepratiti. We have its sculpture in Berlin's museum, very famous. But we don't know. We probably know that they are not the Paro that we're talking about. But there is in history such a case that somebody not appointed by not Egyptian is appointed to be a minister. So Yosef is not the only one. or that he is there. Maybe the tradition that we know from the Bible came in a history somehow differently. But in any case, it's, you know, like a Cinderella, that you take somebody from the pits and make him to be the second to the king. And in any case, we have to understand why it happened and what really happened. If we look well in this perek, it's very interesting that Paro talks to ויאמר פרעה אל יוסף חלום חלמתי ופותר ענותו ויען יוסף את פרעה לאמור בלעדיי Elokim יענה את שלום פרעה. So at the beginning they have small talk. He tells him about his dream. Yosef tells him, I cannot solve him. I need somebody else. Good evening, Ezrat. And then at the end of the day he solves בחלומין אני עומד את שפת היאור, and then he tells him ויאמר יוסף אל פרעה חלום פרעה אחד הוא. 7 years, 7 שנים המה, 7 הפרות הרכות, 7 years, הוא הדבר אשר דיברתי אל פרעה, אשר האלוקים עושה הרע את פרעה. There'll be a big sova, and then afterwards there'll be a big רעב, and you have to look in advance in front in order to solve this issue, and I am the person to do it. אוקיי, יעשה פרעה ויפקד פקידים וכולי וכולי, ויטב הדבר בעיני פרעה ובעיני עבדיו. ויאמר פרעה אל עבדיו, הנמצא כזה איש אשר רוח אלוהים בו. How can you understand this pasuk? ויאמר פרעה אל עבדיו, הנמצא כזה איש אשר רוח אלוהים בו. We know later that Paro doesn't talk to his avadim. He doesn't consult them because Paro is like a god. He doesn't consult his servants. He just talks to them. So it's very weird if we find a pasuk that Paro is so astonished and so proud of the figure in front of him that he tells, wow, look, have you seen such a brilliant person? It's nice. It might be an interpretation, but to this pasuk, but it's very weird. And even though that most of the Rishonim explain like that, it's still weird that the pasuk, the Mikra, the Bible devotes a pasuk to show just the astonishment and the pli'ah of Paro. And maybe the more mat'im, adequate interpretation is Ramban's. Ramban says that that Egyptians hated the Jews. Actually, like today, but they hated Jews because as the pasuk says, "Lo yochlu hamitzrim le'echol et ha'ivriim lechem." They cannot eat with them. They cannot dine with them. Okay, so Ramban said that there was mamish tmeim. They cannot touch them. They cannot be their friends. They put them far away in Eretz Goshen. It's good for Am Israel. It's good for the Egyptians as well. So the Ramban said that this is a consultation that he consulted. Can I take a Jewish or Hebrew slave and make him into something? So he knew that it was problematic, and therefore he didn't show his astonishment, but he consulted the others whether it would be possible or mekubal, accepted, if he appointed such a person that doesn't come from Egypt, okay? And not only that he doesn't come from Egypt, that he is Hebrean, he is Ivri, okay? So we see here the conflict in which Paro understands that it's not only a Cinderella story of taking a slave and coronating him, but more than that, he's taking a Jewish slave and make him into the governor of Mitzrayim. And then, if we look well, we have Vayomer Paro El Yosef 3 times. And now it's a long speech because from now on, Paro talks to יוסף. ויאמר פרעה אל יוסף, אחרי הודיע אלוקים אותך את כל זאת, אין נבון וחכם כמוך. You're the most brilliant person I've ever met. אתה תהיה על ביתי, ועל פיך יישק כל עמי, רק הכיסא אגדל ממך. So he appoints him to be something, the governor of the house. ויאמר פרעה אל יוסף. I don't know if you remember, but it's very well stressed out in the when Abraham expels Hagar to the desert, not Perek Kaf Aleph with Ishmael, but the first one in Perek Tet Zayin. Bereshit Perek Tet Zayin, he expelled her to the desert, and then the Malach meets her, and it's mentioned there 3 times. Vayomer la Malach Hashem שובי אל גבירתך ואיתני תחת ידיה. ויאמר לה מלאך השם הנה חרה ויולדת בן וקראת את שמו ישמעאל. Okay, so you have 3 times the same opening of the pasuk. ויאמר לה מלאך השם, and when the מלאך השם could speak in a row ברצף, it's when the Mikra wants to stress out that there are 3 stages, so therefore the Mikra says ויאמר ויאמר. So the same thing happens here, not like there. There it's the most stressed out point in the Mikra, I think, because it's 3 psukim and 3 vayomers. But here you have over more psukim, 3 vayomers. And Paro talks in a row, so the second one is not needed. ויאמר פרעה אל יוסף, אני פרעה, ובלעדיך לא ירים איש את ידו ואת רגלו בכל ארץ מצרים. So the second, you could, sorry, we're in פסוק י"א. ויאמר פרעה אל יוסף, ראה נתתי אותך על כל ארץ מצרים. He could just go on with what he was saying. אתה תהיה על ביתי ועל פיך יישק כל עמי, רק הכיסא יגדל ממך, ראה נתתי אותך על כל ארץ מצרים, okay? And then, ויקראו לפניו אברך, ונתון אותו על כל ארץ מצרים, אני פרעה ובלעדיך לא ירים איש את ידו. So, 2 times are superfluous, and we have to say that there are 3 speeches, 3 different speeches, and I want to discuss each one of them and what is the second one adds on the first one and what is the third one adds on the second one. More than that, you might even say that it's not one stage in which Paro spoke to Yosef. It might be that at the beginning, when coronating him, Paro just spoke till here, okay, till פסוק מ'. הנמצא כזה איש אשר רוח אלוקים בו, ויאמר פרעה אל יוסף, אחריה הודיע אותך את כל זאת, אין נבון וחכם כמוך. אתה תהיה על ביתי, על פיך יישק כל עמי, רק הכיסא יגדל ממך. So he appoints him, that's very nice. He tells him, you're not back to the prison, you stay here, you become the master of the house. And after a while, after a month, after a year, ויאמר פרעה אל יוסף, ראה נתתיך על כל ארץ מצרים, he enhances his position, not only to be the master of the house, but to be the master of Egypt. After a while, he tells him, אני פרעה ובלעדיך לא ירים איש את ידו ואת רגלו, and then he does what he does. We have to see that it's in the third speech, okay? ויאמר פרעה אל יוסף, אני פרעה, he does 2 things that are very, very significant. First of all, he changes his name, and not Yosef changed his own name, but Paro changes his name to an Egyptian one. Sofnat Paneach will speak in a few minutes about it. And if you remember the Ramban that I just mentioned, that Paro had some conflict with the Jewish identity of the slave he is coronating now to be the king. So it might be that by changing his name, Paro wants to make yourself into Egyptian, a really Egyptian identity. And if you remember well that Yosef lost his family, and Yosef lost his brothers and his father, that he might think that his father maybe cooperated with the brothers. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with the famous Rashbam's explanation, that Rashbam understands that Yosef never tried to send a letter to his father to look for his father, because he was sure that his father had sold him, because who was the person that told him to go to Hinei Achecha Ro'im B'Shechem Necha Vayishlachecha Alehem? It was Yaakov. After sending him to Shechem, he was kidnapped, he was almost murdered. So according to Rashbam's famous explanation, Yosef suspected his father that he was a Meshatef Peula with them, and therefore he never looked after him. That's Rashbam's explanation. None of the Rishonim understand like this, but in any case, it's very clear that Yosef had, on the one hand, he had a very good relation with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. If he could not be choite with Eshet Potifar, but on the other hand, he had no reason to stay with any kasher to his family, to his nation, to Am Yisrael, and therefore he might have been interested in changing his identity into Egyptian one. So the first one is changing his name, and the second one is Vaiten lo et Osnat Potifera Kohen on Leisha. You have to remember the famous midrashim that Am Yisrael never changed their name, never changed never shinu et abgadim v'chulei. So everything here shows the double meaning of being Egyptian from the one side and maybe Jewish on the other side. We'll find it by Moshe in the future. You know, I don't see here any French people because it's it's Shiur in English, and now this week we had a confrontation between the French and the Anglos on the WhatsApp group. But if you're familiar, so the French have their Manitou. If you are familiar with the name, Manitou was Rabbi Yehuda Ashkenazi, was a leader of France Jewry after the Holocaust, and he spoke a lot. It's not well translated into Hebrew, so I have seen very little of this, but he has spoken a lot about the double identities that Moshe has in Egypt. Freud spoke about it as well, that he is from the one side he has an Egyptian identity, from the other side he has a Jewish one, because he sees the Sevel, the agony of his brothers, and so we'll see with Yosef. Yosef has a double meaning. Usually, I must say it now, when looking on the figure of Yosef, we have a lot of people to compare to. We can compare Yosef to Mordechai Yehudi. It's very, very similar, because both of them are leaders in the diaspora. Both of them have some problems with their brothers, as we know the famous Gemara that Am Yisrael was not satisfied with the Idgarut of Mordechai in Umot HaOlam. Why do you do it? Why don't you bow to and bend to Esau, to Haman, etc.? And Mamash, they are both dressed by the leader, the king. They are both have Merkava, okay? ויוצא יוסף רוכב, and Mordechai יצא מלפני המלך בלבוש מלכות, and they are both tzadikim, etc. So one identity is Mordechai. The other identity you might compare to is Daniel. A lot of comparisons to Daniel. They both have a non-Jewish name. Daniel is called Belshazzar, okay, by Nebuchadnezzar, an explicit pasuk. A lot of times he's called again Daniel asher shmo Belshazzar, and Yosef is called Tzofnat Paneach. They have a lot in common, and you have here Moshe as well, and it's very interesting to see Yosef encompassing all the three figures were similar, because you know that if A equals B and A equals C and A equals D, so B and C and D are equal as well. So Yosef has some variety of figures where he is equal to all of them, and we have to look on each of it in details. In any case, look now at the first speech between פרעה and יוסף. ויאמר פרעה אל יוסף, אחרי הודיע אותך את כל זאת, אין נבון וחכם כמוך. אתה תהיה על ביתי, ועל פיך יישק כל עמי, רק הכיסא אגדל ממך. If you look, well, so what does it mean? אתה תהיה על ביתי. 3 times Yosef was a master of the house. The first time was, it's not explicit, but it's you'll agree with me, was in Beit Yaakov, because Yosef is the Ikar Habayit. His father loves him, and he, Vayave Yosef et dibatam ra'a al avihem, meaning usually you are motzi diba, okay? And Yosef mevi, he imports all the defamation that he has and brings him into the house of Yaakov, meaning to say that he is the controller of the house, he is the master of the house. Whatever he says, Yaakov agrees, and if he says something bad on his brothers, so he can bring it, and it becomes the common thing in the house. So we have Yosef as a master of the house in Yaakov's house. Secondly, he becomes the master of the house in Beit Potiphar, okay? And at the end of the day, he becomes the master of the house of Beit HaSohar, the prison, okay? So, and you know that throughout the Bible, the Mikra, we have a lot of times a paradigm of 3 and 4. I think I've mentioned it in the past. כה אמר השם על 3 פשעי ישראל ועל 4 לא אשיבנו. על 3 פשעי אדום ועל 4 לא אשיבנו. 3 פשעי פלישתים ועל 4 לא אשיבנו. So you have a lot of times with Bilam, with Aton, a lot of times you have 3 times that the hero of the story fails, and at the 4th time he succeeds. So the same here. Yosef became the master of the house in his father's in house in Potiphar's and in the prison, but now he is becoming the master of the house on Beit Paro. So maybe it's the 4th time. I'm sure that he knows that it's a 4th time, but he doesn't have the macro perspective to see all the Bible. Does he think that he has come to the menucha and nachala, and from now on everything will be okay? Or he might think that in the future he'll be kicked out of this possession as he was kicked out of the 3 former places. So in any case, he is here the master of the house. What does it mean? Yishak. Al picha yishak kol ami. The Meforshim have a lot of explanation. Rashi understands like an economical person in charge. Yishak milshon meshek, meshek bayit. Who is a person in charge of the house? The person who runs the house. So you'll be the economical governor for my house. According to Rashbam, to Ibn Ezra, to Radak, it's Ishak Kolami il milshon neshek, weapon, or you'll arm, okay? Because of you, everybody will arm himself with food, okay? That's a neshek for the future, for confronting the war of Ra'av, okay? So it's not meshek, it's neshek with nun, according to a lot of Meforshim. According to some others, it's kabbalat marut, undertaking responsibility. You'll say something, everybody would listen. But you might say that ishak means to give a kiss, lishak. And we know that when meeting his brothers, Yosef noten lahem neshika, he gives them a kiss. And you might say that that was missing him all the time, because now Paro tells him, Al picha isha kol ami, they'll all obey you, they'll all listen to you. But you know, citizens, civilians, they listen to you just because it's good for them. They don't love you. They don't have any relation with you. Just listen to you because you are the person in charge and you save their lives. So you see by this, using this word of Ishak, that Yosef misses some love of the family, that he'll get it just later when he sees his brother, but he gets fake love from the obeying, from the being obedient to his pkudot, to his what he says, the civilians. Okay, so here it's very, very narrow. Malchut, you'll be just a master of the house. Okay, but at the end of his life, he'll be not only the master of the house of Paro, he'll be the master of the house of all Am Yisrael. Let's go to the second keta, second speech. ויאמר פרעה אל יוסף, ראה נתתיך על כל ארץ מצרים. By saying that, על כל ארץ מצרים, you see that he enhances the being a master from the house to be a master of all Egypt, okay? And you might say that here it was just in the house of the king. Now it's clear that by being in the house of the king and giving the orders to the Egyptians, you'll be the master of all Egypt. But here it's ke'ilu detached from being the master of the house. You'll be the master of all Eretz Mitzrayim. And therefore, he gives him some kingdom, official kingdom. Okay, ויסר פרעה את טבעתו מעל ידו, he gives him the חותמת, okay, he'll be able to sign, as we know from the Megillat Esther again, ויסר המלך את טבעתו, ויתנה להמן בנמדת האגגי, so by giving it to Yosef, Yosef has שררה, has some, he is able to rule all of Mitzrayim, okay, not only that, but he gets clothes, וילבש אותו בגדי שש, וישם רביד הזהב על צווארו. What does בגדי שש mean? Rashi and most of the Meforshim don't understand that it's just בגדי פשטן, because בגדי פשטן is very simple, plain. Rashi understands that it was בגדים חשובים in מצרים. Okay, so if you read the pasuk, you might think that Paro himself did it. ויסר פרעה את טבעתו מעל ידו, I'm pretty sure that you made him himself. וילבש אותו בגדי שש. Did Paro dress Yosef up? וישם רביד הזהב על צווארו, וירכב אותו במרכבת המשנה אשר לו. Who did that? It's probably some slave, okay? But it's written as if you might think that Paro did it all by himself. And if I come back to Megillat Esther, you know how crucial is who leads the person on the horse, okay? Who leads it? ככה יעשה לאיש אשר המלך חפץ ביקרו. It's a crucial point in the Megillah. So the same thing happens here. You might have the impression, even though that, to tell you the truth, it's for sure not the truth, that Paro did it himself, because the Mikra wants you to feel as if it's very, very crucial. Even the Melech takes all Egypt, take all the Egyptian kingdom, and coronates him as his Mishne, as not for my house only, but for all Mitzrayim as well. Okay, so that's a part of the thing. If you remember the Ketonet Pasim that Yosef got in his house in Beit Aviv, by Yaakov, so he had a very nice dress, but the dress was taken from him. Will the clothes, I'm asking again the same question. Now he is dressed again with significant clothes. Will they be taken again, or that these clothes will stay with him forever? He doesn't know it by then, so he has a conflict between a temporary control and shilton, or that now he came to the menucha and the nachala. We don't know what he thinks about himself. Another point to know that this one was never fulfilled. ראה נתתי אותך על כל ארץ מצרים. We never saw that Yosef was really the person in charge of all Egypt. We saw that he was a person in charge for dealing with the Ra'av. That's it. But we never saw that, maybe he was, maybe not, but we never saw more than that, that he was mamash Mishne Lamelech in this meaning. Okay. Let's go to the third one. ויאמר פרעה אל יוסף, the third time, אני פרעה, ובלעדיך לא ירים איש את ידו ואת רגלו בכל ארץ מצרים. Just one point, not חשוב, but pay attention to the משחק מילים, the game of words between מרכבת, from the שורש לרכב, to ride, and אברך, from the same שורש, רחב, ברך. There is a beautiful Rav Hutner in his פחד יצחק that talks about שורש in Hebrew, לרכב, לברך ולהבריך. We have in the Mishne in Ezraim, להבריך. To prune, maybe? Prune, that you take one geza, one trunk, and you plant it again, the same trunk, in a different place, and then you have a different plant out of it. You have it in Ezraim, it's prune and graft. I think it's prune, no? Yeah? Okay, להבריך. Okay, so להבריך ולקרוע ברך ולרכב ובכור. Rav Hutner says it's all the same שורש. And pay attention what the Maharal says. You have the ot bet, which is 2. You have the ot kaf, which is 20. You have the ot reish, which is 200. Okay, all of them are second. Okay, second letter in the units, second letter of the tens, second letter in the hundreds. Okay, so Rav Hutner explains that when you bow on your knee, when you קורע ברך, so you might think that you are less high, that you are, okay, because you manmich yourself. But if you קורע ברך, you bow in front of a bigger personality, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of another king, so you belong to something bigger than you. If you are rochev, if you ride, you go away from your house. You think that because of the way, nobody will know who you are. As HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avraham, you go away from Yartzecha, Me'otecha, etc. But at the end of the day, you become bigger, okay? And if you are Bechor, the same thing. You have a lot of authority, but you become bigger. Okay, so just it's a משחק מילים. Let's go to the third קטע. ויאמר פרעה יוסף אני פרעה, etc., etc. So let's talk about the name צופנת פנח. What does it mean? פרעה, I've said, gives him a name, in Egypt, in מצרית עתיקה, in all the Egypt, the name צופנת פנח, it's כנראה, apparently, הקדוש ברוך הוא, the God said, and you'll leave, okay, so whatever. Ibn Ezra has a conflict whether it's a Hebrew word translated to Mitzrit, or a Mitzrit word translated to Hebrew, because we know what is tzofnat is to decipher. What does paneach mean? Paneach is four-lettered root. Okay, it's modern. And the Tanakh usually we don't have in Hebrew four letters for a root, and it's to decipher. Okay, but that's a modern meaning. Even though that most of the Meforshim explain like this, that Yosef can solve dreams, can decipher codes, can decode things. Usually, it might be that it's an Egyptian word. Okay, so what does litzpon mean? What does tzafun? Tzafun means far away. What does tzafun in Leil HaSeder mean? That it's hidden. Who was hidden? Yosef himself was hidden in the bore, in the pit. Okay, he in the prison. He was hidden. And he was taken out of the bore. Okay, so its name might say something in Hebrew or in Egyptian, but it might talk about himself, and it might talk about his role to decipher. Paro tries to give him an Egyptian identity, and at the end of the day, after giving him the Egyptian name, he still has a meaning in Hebrew. The same thing happens with Moshe. Paro gives him an Egyptian name. Moshe means the son, but at the end of the day, it has a Hebrew meaning, in Hebrew translation, Kimina Mayim Eshitiu. So Moshe talks about himself, about I was taken from the water. Here is the same. I was taken from the pits, from the prison. So it gives us again the double meaning of his life. Paro tries to make him Egyptian, but Yosef stays Hebraian, and not only. But we have a lot of changing names in the Mikra. Avram to Avraham, Yaakov to Israel. Nebuchadnezzar changed Matanya to Tzidkiyahu, and from then on he stays only Tzidkiyahu. But here Yosef is never nicknamed Tzofnat Paneach anymore. He's called just Yosef. So it has his Hebrew and Jewish identity. And here you see the first step, Paro just appointed him to be the master of the house. The second step, he appointed him to be the master of all of Mitzrayim. Therefore, instead of kiseh, which is very home, it belongs to the house, he has merkevet, something official. Okay, something for the and he has nice clothes for the malchut. But the third one, he tries to make him Egyptian, and the chidush of it that Yosef stays Jewish, stayed with his name, stayed with his double meaning, but stayed Jewish. We'll have to finish now, and we never solve the problem with the Zoom, so we have to think it over. But at the end of the time, in the meantime, have a wonderful Chanukah and happy one to you and to all of Am Yisrael. Leitraot and Bsorot Tovot.